guys, what's up? This is Crexon. I want to welcome you to episode 6 of Soundwave, where today we will be reviewing Sabotage. Now, this album came out on July 28, 1975. It's co-produced by Tony Iommi and Mike Butcher. And in retrospect, I think this album in Black Sabbath's discography is mostly known for a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on. They were in the middle of a lot of lawsuits and litigation. You guys remember in the prior episodes, I kept mentioning the band's at the time manager, Patrick Meehan. A lot of it involved him. They were trying to get out of contracts with him. He was taking the lion's share of the money that they were earning. And, they were chopping charts everywhere and barely getting anything back. That anger and frustration that they were dealing with at the time is kind of reflected in the tone of a lot of the music on this album. You guys notice I'm in a different location today. I'm actually at my drummer's house. Pretty funny story about the album cover. Apparently, when they were first thinking about the album cover, they wanted to be wearing black suits or something. They wanted this really serious appearance. But before that, they kind of had them all line up in front of this mirror, kind of as a test shoot, and they didn't wear the clothes that they were supposed to. And if you look at the album cover at what they're wearing, it's really bizarre. Ozzy's wearing, it looks almost like a fucking kimono or something. I'm pretty sure Bill Ward is wearing, his wife's tights or something. Just absolutely bizarre. And it's just ironic that the album is called Sabotage because their album cover got sabotaged. They literally didn't get to make the cover that they wanted, so funny how that works sometimes. But before I start getting too rambly, let's just get right into the track listing. You guys know how it goes. Standard track listing only. Hole in the Sky, Don't Start Too Late, Symptom of the Universe, which is the riff I played at the beginning, Megalomania, Thrill of It All, Supertzar, Am I Going Insane Radio, and the Writ. Let's get to it. Track 1, Hole in the Sky. Now, as soon as this song starts, the first thing you notice is the very raw, aggressive, just raucous sound that this song has. That riff that hits at the beginning, and you just hear Bill Ward in the back just hammering down on the drums. It's just really bombastic. And then it gets to the riff right after. Just and the way Tony Iommi just bends that one note there, it's just so gnarly sounding. And then Geezer's bass line underneath is really cool bass line underneath. Ozzy's vocals kick in, and this is where you notice he started pushing himself really to his limits on Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and that continues on Sabotage. Sabotage overall, I would say up until this point, is his best vocal performance by far. Every song is just really, really going for it. It's fantastic. Very cymbal heavy drumming. Riff is great. Ozzy's singing really loud. The chorus too, just da 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 da, hole in the sky, da 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 da, gateway to heaven. It's only those few parts that kind of repeat, but it's just such a cool. It just grooves hard. It's we really got back to just being a really heavy rock band on this one. Not so much of a progressive rock experimentation. They were really focusing more on Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. I'm not entirely sure what the lyrics are about, but I always interpreted them being about evolution. You see lyrics I don't believe there's a future of cars, hole in the sky, gateway to heaven. I always saw it as the hole in the ozone layer. That was a big thing that we would always talk about back then. But yeah, really cool song overall. Great opening to the album. The production has this really raw, nasty sound to it. But everything's filled out really well. You hear Geezer a little bit more on this one. It's not quite to the same level as the Roger Bain trilogy, where he's really in your face, but he's definitely a lot more noticeable in the mix than he was on either Volume 4 or Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. The only real negative I have about this song is the way that it randomly kind of cuts out. It's very abrupt, just goes into the next track. I wish they actually made a legitimate ending for it, but other than that, I really have no complaints. This is just a great, straightforward, punch you in the mouth kind of rock song. Really dig it. Track 2, Don't Start Too Late. Apparently, in the past, when Black Sabbath would go to start recording, the engineer at the time, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Mike Butcher, but he would always be like, "Hey, don't start. I'm not ready yet," and they would always start before he was ready. So the song reference is a reference to that. It's "Oh, don't start. Too late. You already did your thing." It's just a short, kind of, sort of classical acoustic guitar piece. really nice. It's almost like a calm before the storm, because it kind of leads into the next track, which is Symptom of the Universe. And that's all I really have to say about it. It's not really one of my more favorite instrumentals that Black Sabbath has done, but it's pretty cool. Track 3, Symptom of the Universe. Now, the first thing you notice about the song right away is that fucking badass guitar riff at the beginning. You guys heard it in the intro. And when I did my review of Master of Reality, you guys probably remember me saying that Children of the Grave was kind of like a proto-thrash metal song. Symptom of the Universe is probably that next step, maybe even more so. It is really fucking aggressive, especially for 1975 of all years. That riff, really leaning into the tritone. I think it's like the first time they've really done that to that extent since the title song Black Sabbath from the very first album. But, you know, it's more of a thrash metal style though. And then the riff he does after, he just down, down, down. He just kind of holds out those chords. You just hear Bill Ward just doing these crazy fills in the background. It really gives it this chaotic, just absolutely insane quality. Again, Ozzy's just pushing himself to the limits as soon as he starts singing. He just, take me to the centuries of supersonic years. Like, really going up there. Especially that one part where he's like, all I've got to give you is a love that never dies. Like, just really screaming it out almost. You know, it kind of repeats those parts a few more, and then you get to this one riff in the middle. And then you hear kind of Geezer's bass line on these, just boom, 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 boom. It's kind of in time with Bill's drumming, and it goes into this fast section. And that kind of leads into the guitar solo section. And this is like really like the last section that has this loud, over-the-top electric guitar, just fuck you attitude that the song has. After that, it goes into this more kind of jam band, relaxing sort of acoustic feel. And here, Ozzy Osbourne's vocals are a lot more expressive and like melodious, whereas during the more aggressive electric guitar attack that you had at the beginning, it's just, you know, a non-stop attack. Again, just like Hole in the Sky, which is really cool. But here, it's a lot more chill. We got acoustic guitars and just kind of jamming it out. And, you know, Ozzy's vocals, you woman, child of love's creation. Like he's actually singing melodies at this point. Yeah, this is such a cool song. That outro is just a huge contrast to the earlier parts, but they make it work. It's an awesome fucking song, one of their best by far. I always was fascinated by the lyrics of it too, because lyrically, it's pretty much the same as Planet Caravan, but you could not have a more different approach. I mean, that's a really chill, kind of jazzy sort of ballad. This is not a ballad at all. I mean, the second half kinda, but it's just an aggressive, you know, like I said, in your face. But lyrically, it's the same theme, which I find super interesting. It's just such a contrast. You hear that aggressive music, you think it would be about negative lyrics, but this is basically a love song. It's, you know, one of the most aggressive love songs I've ever heard. Instead of, you know, I love you, it's basically Ozzy going, I love you. It's kind of funny, but yeah, Symptom of the Universe is fantastic. Check it out. Track 4, Megalomania. Now, the intro of the song starts off with this really kind of haunting, psychedelic kind of vibe. And Ozzy's vocals kind of fade in like, obsessed, obsessed, obsessed. I forget what the first lyric is, but it's like kind of like that before he kind of sings in this kind of very melancholy, almost like emotional way. Gets to the kind of heavier section where you just hear these big like guitar parts. Underneath is boom, 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 like on the bass of the guitar. Tony Iommi kind of does these hammer-ons like, you know, very like over the top. It feels like this emotional ordeal almost. During the one section was like, why don't you just stay out? I really like Geezer's bass lines. It's just boom, 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 boom. He does like these little fills in there that sound really cool. It does that kind of part, you know, like a couple times before we get to this middle part where it's like piano in it. It's really weird, like until we get into this really awesome heavy riff in the middle of the song, and it pretty much does this riff up until the end. It kind of cycles through a couple different parts, but it's just this. Really love that riff a lot. When Bill Ward comes in with the drums, I think there's like a little bit of cowbell in there. Just again, funny. awesome riff, like really kick ass. And then at the end of those sections, like Ozzy says like something different every time. Like they'll say like "Sting me, suck me, free," like before going and transitioning into the next part, which is really cool. The guitar solo on that, I think they use like some kind of a phaser effect. It's really cool sounding. You know, nothing super fancy. Yeah, a lot of Tony solos aren't fancy. They're just kind of, you know, that kind of serve the song. They're usually jammy, sort of. And I think towards the end, you almost hear these, I don't know if it's like a mellotron or synthesizer or something, but you hear these almost swelling kind of string sounds. And it keeps going back and forth between these kind of two sections and that heavy riff, which is really cool. And that's pretty much it musically. It kind of just fades out. Very long track, but it does feel like kind of like a journey. I really like it a lot. Lyrically, you know, a megalomaniac, someone that has like delusional fantasies of power and stuff, and you could really see that this song is pretty much a straight up attack on their management and the people that they were in the middle of lawsuits with. That's why this album has such an angry sound, like I was mentioning before. And this song seems like, you know, a direct confrontation of the people they're dealing with. It's like dealing with these people that have, you know, basically making power grabs and taking all their money and everything that they've worked hard to acquire. But yeah, cool track. I like this one. Track 5, Thrill of It All. Now, the first riff you hear is really cool. It's just this like this kind of cool riff. And then once the band actually kicks in, you just hear these huge unison bends. Just it sounds super gnarly, just really raw and like nasty. And it kind of does that part a couple times until we get to the main riff. And then the drums and bass kick in. It's just a super simple groove. And every time I hear this song, I could see how like a band like Corrosion of Conformity would have been influenced by it. Because their album, America's Volume Dealer, that whole album basically sounds like just this one song here. Really love Ozzy's vocals on it. I don't know the exact words, but he sounds really good. A lot of the verse and just most of the song kind of just has this like, you know, pretty raw, rocky, just like jammy kind of feel to it. Guitar solo section, like really jammy sounding. And then we get to this middle section where it just kind of switches gears and gets like almost like happy, like gets this almost more like optimistic kind of vibe to it. And you hear like these synthesizers and like pianos and kind of stuff. And you know, Ozzy kind of like, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Like that whole thing. Really bouncy bass lines, like he's a butler. Like he just sounds really good throughout this track. You know, that section where Iommi was doing a little guitar solo comes back after every bridge. Really cool song. I mean, that groove during the verse is really what makes it for me for the most part. Just that da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That combination of the guitar, the simple bass and drums, and just Ozzy's vocals over top. It's just, you cannot beat that. It's so good. Lyrically, it just seems to be about like the sad state of the world, the way, you know, kind of Geezer Butler just lamenting over the way things are. And it's not necessarily even hoping to get you like solutions to any of the problems, but just kind of stating it for what it is, and kind of wondering like why any kind of God allow this stuff to happen. But there are sections that almost seem to like offer like hope, like, hey, you know, maybe we'll get through this, it'll be all right. But yeah, the Thrill of It All is a great song. I like it a lot. Track 6, Supertzar. Now, really interesting story before I even talk about the song itself. Apparently, when Ozzy Osbourne had gone to the studio, this song heavily features like chamber choir and stuff like that. And he had gone to the studio and seen the choir. He thought he was at the wrong place and just straight up dipped and left. He had to come back at one point and, you know, to arrange the song and everything. At some point, he was trying to like show the parts to the choir, and he was like apparently conducting them like a crazy man because he's not really a trained musician. I mean, he can carry a tune, but I can just imagine this dude just coked out of his mind in the mid-70s, just trying to tell, you know, this professionally trained choir like, oh bloody hell, you have to sing it like this. But yeah, I always thought there was like just a funny backstory on Supertzar. Like I said, this is kind of like an epic sounding sort of instrumental in the choir, like sort of like classical kind of sounding stuff. There's like marching drums in it, and you know, you hear a lot of kind of vocals that mixes kind of together, kind of interesting. And my favorite part of the song though is probably the one heavy riff near the middle. It's just and once it goes to that, you hear the choir coming like, Pretty cool. It just kind of repeats those parts over and over again. You have the marching drums, like I was saying. But yeah, not a lot I can say about Supertzar. It's pretty interesting. I don't love it, but it's cool. Track 7, Am I Going Insane Radio. Now, the radio subtitle that this song has, a lot of people thought for the longest time that this was like a radio version of like a fuller song, and they kind of chopped it up. That's not the case. Apparently, in like Cockney British slang, it's radio is short for radio rental, which is slang for someone that's like a mental case, like they're fucking crazy. But yeah, apparently that's where it comes from. And, you know, it makes a little bit more sense with the rest of the title, like Am I Going Insane Radio. But it starts off with this kind of jovial, happy-sounding kind of synth intro, you know, just... And, yeah, you hear a lot of, like, bass octaves that Diesel Butler plays. Just... Nothing super complicated, but it sounds cool. I really like the drums during the chorus. You just hear Ozzy, like, tell me, people... Am I going insane? And then you just hear the drums kind of go like every time after he says insane. It's really cool. Dig that part. You know, the chorus, you know, it sounds really kind of happy-go-lucky sort of feel, but the verses are very, like, almost kind of melancholy. It's the way Ozzy sings it, like da 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 da. Like it's like sounds like a little bit on edge until you get to the chorus, where it just kind of has that more relaxed feel to it. The guitar solo is really simple sounding, almost sounds like it has some kind of univibe effect on it. Pretty simple. This is like the lightest, like poppiest sounding song on the album. It's a little bit of a contrast compared to like the aggression and heaviness of the rest of the album has, but it's pretty cool. It just kind of ends with this like weird kind of like laughing and like screaming sounds. It's kind of creepy. But I would assume, you know, since the song's basically about, you know, losing your mind and going insane, that's basically, at the end, it just kind of keeps repeating itself, and you hear like someone literally, you know, descending to the depths of madness, essentially. That's all I really got to say about Am I Going Insane Radio. It's a cool little catchy song, but not one of my favorites on the record. Track 8, The Writ. Now this starts with kind of like a weird, low-key, kind of wah-heavy kind of bass tone. As soon as the band actually hits in, the first thing you really notice are Ozzy Osbourne's vocals. Like, probably the highest he sings on this whole album, and that's saying something. You know, just really pushing himself to his limit. But the verse is very angry and like aggressive sounding. This is like very much a scathing condemnation of their manager at the time, Patrick Meehan. You know, the song's literally called The Writ. They were writing writs and had tons of lawyers in the studio while they were actually making this, so you could just feel that anger on this song. It kind of has this like growly sort of guitar tone near the middle, where Tony Iommi plays this one riff. It's just kind of reminds me of that sort of Volume 4 kind of vibe. But then, a little bit after that, there's this very rough transition into the section after, where it's down, 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 ba-da-da-da-da-da. The part itself is cool, but the way they transition into it always feels very sudden, and you just kind of jerk into it. Very bizarre. It's like probably the one part about the song I really don't like. But like I said, the part itself does sound pretty cool. A little bit later, it goes into this kind of more subdued, kind of quiet part, with like kind of clean guitar. It almost looks like just a harpsichord or something in the background too. And it's basically carried by that really clean guitar sound, and Ozzy's more melodic kind of singing. He's not really so much like shouting as high as he can go. It's actually more just him being a little bit more melodic, kind of similar to Symptom of the Universe earlier on the album. But yeah, it kind of goes back to that riff prior I was talking about and kind of just fades off. But yeah, really cool song overall. I just really don't like that one transition. Track 9, the hidden track, Blow on a Jug. I just want to mention this one real quick. It's not really meant to be taken seriously. The producer had recorded Bill Ward and Ozzy Osbourne kind of fucking around at one point. Bill Ward's kind of playing on a piano and like singing this goofy song while Ozzy's literally blowing on a jug. It's like not even 20 seconds long. It doesn't really contribute to the album or take away from it, and it's just kind of a goof, you know. Just wanted to mention it as an aside. But yeah, it's just a joke song. Like I said in the previous video, this month's featured artist is Psychoprism. Psychoprism is a New Jersey and New York-based power metal band. They just put out a record last December. So here's a clip of their cover of You've Got Another Thing Coming by Judas Priest.
If you think I'll just sit around as the world goes by
So what are my overall thoughts on Sabotage? Well, overall, it's a very loud, aggressive, and just raucous, kind of back to basic rock album from them. You guys saw when I did the review for Bloody Sabbath, when they were leaning more on the progressive rock tendencies of that album, it gave it this kind of muted, sort of flat, tame kind of sound. This album does not sound tame at all. Like, literally, as soon as you hear Hole in the Sky, it's just fuck you kind of attitude. And probably Ozzy Osbourne's best vocal performance up until this point. Like, literally just pushing himself to the limits, singing as high as he could go. I don't think he really did better on any of the preceding albums. Geezer's a little bit more noticeable on this album compared to what he is on Volume 4 and Bloody Sabbath. Not quite as noticeable in the first 3 albums, you know, the Roger Bane trilogy, but definitely a little bit more prominent in the mix, which I like. Great riffs by Tony Iommi as always. Bill Ward's just, the drumming on this, he's just doing fills like a madman throughout. You can just feel the anger that they were going through at the time with all the lawsuits and crap, and you know, they were able to pour all that frustration into the music, which makes it sound like really, really cool. It's a really good combination of the early heaviness that they had on the first few albums and a little bit of the experimentation on Bloody Sabbath, but not quite as much. They definitely focus more on like the actual rocky, heavy parts of it, which that's usually Sabbath at its best. But there's a couple rough transitions and like okay sections of the album. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of the instrumentals on here compared to the ones they had prior, but you know, they're still pretty cool. It's not like I hear it and I hate it. It's just like, this is alright. But the actual songs are really great. And, you know, Am I Going Insane Radio sticks out a little bit because it's a little bit more poppy and happy sounding, but it's still a solid track. Overall, I'd probably give this a 4 out of 5. You know, probably around the same level as the debut. It has like similar problems, I would say. So not quite up there with Paranoid or Master of Reality, but definitely better than Volume 4 and Bloody Sabbath, in my opinion. And the top 3 tracks are pretty easy for me to pick. I would say Hole in the Sky, Symptom of the Universe, and Thrill of It All. Those are, and if you notice, all 3 of those songs have that really aggressive kind of rocky vibe that I kept mentioning. That's this album at its best, really. That's all I really have to say about Sabotage. Going forward from this video, I'm going to be starting a new job, so the uploads might become a little bit infrequent, but I will do my best to continue regular scheduled videos every week. If you like it, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time for Technical Ecstasy.